Hello, welcome to TypeScript Basics. In this part, we are going to look at functions. Function is a block of code designed to do something. You can reuse a function with different arguments. Many construct uses functions under the hood. For example, if you create a class is represented by functions under the hood in JavaScript. This is a syntax for creating a function. You create a function using function keyword followed by function name, which is optional. And then you can have 0 or more parameters, and then you can optionally specify return type. In most cases, TypeScript is smart enough to infer return type of your function, but in some cases you may need to specify it explicitly. Let's see some example for these now. I have VS Code open here with the main.ts file. I don't have anything in this file at the moment. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a new function called add. So to create function, we need to use function keyword. So I'm going to say function add is my function name, and I'm going to use parentheses here, and within this I'm going to specify two parameters to this function. The first parameter is going to be called a, and it is of number type, and the second parameter is going to be called b, and which is also a number type, and it is going to return number, but I'm going to omit it intentionally. And then because function is a block of code, I'm going to create code block using opening and closing brace. So within this block, which is the body of the function, I'm going to add a and b, then I'm going to return the result. So to return result, I can just say return a plus b. So this is a function I have created with the function keyword, and it is called add, and it takes two parameters a and b. And in the body of the function, all we are doing is we are adding a and b, and we are returning the result. If I want to use this function, I need to invoke this function. To invoke this function, all I need to do is I need to specify the function name, and then I need to pass value for those two parameters. Those values are going to be called arguments. I'm going to pass 5 for a and 6 for b. So this is going to return the result. So I'm going to create a variable called result, and I'm going to store the result of this function invocation. So if I print this result, I will be able to see number 11 on my screen. So I'm going to run this now. As you can see here, it has printed 11 in it. So basically what we have done is we have created a function called add, and we have invoked that function with two arguments, and we stored the result of that function in this variable called result, and then we printed it. If I hover over this function, actually I haven't specified return type for this function, but TypeScript inferred that it is going to return number, because based on what we return from this function, TypeScript is smart enough to infer we are going to return number. This function definition is called named function. And there is another way to create this function, which is called assigned function. So to create assigned function, we'll first create this nameless function, or people call it as anonymous function. So this is a function, but it doesn't have any way to refer this. It doesn't have name or anything. But what we can do is we can treat the definition of function itself as a value. So what I mean is we can create a variable called add, and we can assign the function definition as a value to that variable. So now add is a variable and its value is this function. So to invoke this function, all we need to do is we need to say add, and then we need to specify the list of arguments within parentheses. So there is no difference between this assigned function and named function in terms of invocation. They both work the same, but there is a small difference between assigned function and named function. Let me show you what I mean actually. So if I move this line to top of this file, then my TypeScript compiler is going to complain saying that it couldn't find this function add, because in the file we have created this variable after this line. So this line couldn't see what add means because it comes after this line in the flow. So it doesn't work when we use assigned function. If I change this to named function, then it will still work. So this is a small difference between named function and assigned function. There is another way to create function, which is called arrow function. So arrow function is very similar to anonymous function, but it's just that it won't have function keyword, and then it will use fat arrow between parameter list and the function body. So let me show you what I mean actually. So I'm going to remove this function keyword, and I'm also going to remove this function name. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new variable called add. I'm going to assign this function definition, but this time I'm going to put this fat arrow between the parameter list and the function body. So this is actually a lambda function. So this is a valid function. We can call this function, and then we can see the result here. So let me just run this. You can see here it still works. With arrow function, what we can do, if the body of the function is going to have only one line, and if that line is going to be a return statement, then you can actually change it to be something like an expression. So I can remove these braces, and I can also remove this return keyword. So this will look like an expression actually, but it is actually a function. In other languages like C#, this is called a lambda expression. If I run this, this will still work. As you can see here, it still prints 11 on my console. So this is arrow function. With this arrow function, let's say we only have one parameter, which is a, and let me change this to a plus a. And if you don't have to specify the type of this parameter for some reason, then we don't need to use this parentheses. We can just say a goes to a plus b. So this is sort of like a more simplified expression, but this is actually a function. So this is arrow function, and I'm going to remove this additional parameter that we have here. And if I run this, it will still work. As you can see, it has printed result 10 because we are adding 5 plus 5. Now we have looked at 3 ways to create functions. We have looked at how to create a named function, and then we looked at how to create assigned function, and finally we have seen how to create arrow function. So that's it for now. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.